welcome to Saturday Night at the Movies, the podcast that celebrates classic, cult, and current films and the people that made them, and many other aspects of pop culture. I'm your host, Steve Rubin. Our producer is Ben Shrewsbury, and our signature theme was composed by Greg Lehrhoff. Here it's always Saturday night, and our mission is to chronicle film and pop cultural history one memory at a time. Tonight, our guest is film and television producer and former production company executive Marc Charles Rosen, who has worked with nearly every studio and streamer in Hollywood, as well as partnering with mega producer Lynda Obst, founding Harry Potter director David Heyman's production company, serving as Village Roadshow's in-house producer, and working with such cinema luminaries as Christopher Nolan, David Goyer, Chris Carter, and many more. Welcome, Marc.
Hi, thank you.
I'll tell the audience that Marc and I met recently walking dogs. I don't think you were walking your own dog, right?
No, I was walking a friend's dog. Yeah.
So I mean, in our business, in work living in Los Angeles, you're always a stone's throw from somebody,
Yes.
and it's always funny these encounters. If you had to be asked what was your most interesting celebrity encounter over the years, do you have one that stands out in your mind?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, it's funny. I was obsessed with Jones growing up. I went, I think, for my some birthday to see the second one, and so I just love those movies. And then I ended up making a movie in Canada, a kids movie with an elephant. And uh, um, Alan Reese Davies. Um,
John Rhys Davies?
sorry, pardon me. Yes, I'm so sorry. John Reese Davies. Um,
Hola.
yes, exactly. Was going to be a part of it, was attached to it. And so it was really amazing to get to hang out with him and hear stories about all and any of those things and whatnot. So it's slightly niche and dorky and whatever, but yeah, that was definitely a highlight for sure.
He's not really 3 feet tall like his character in Lord of the Rings, right? He's.
No, definitely not.
I'll give you my solo impression. Cairo, city of the living, a paradise on earth. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the only movie I ever went to the theater and stayed for the second showing.
Right.
I
Yeah.
saw the Chinese, the summer of '81, and I must have I recorded the whole movie on audio, and I must have listened to it 2,000 times. I mean,
Yeah, no, I think I had a play set where it had like the rock. It was like from the opening. See, it had the rock that would roll and the whatever. And I definitely, because I had a Millennium Falcon too. Yeah, I actually had Indiana Jones toys.
so you sounds like you grew up a media kid. You were into a lot of film and TV.
I was into story. No, I grew up in San Diego, which is terrific. But it's only 120 miles from Los Angeles, but it's a universe away. Like it's just a different atmosphere. I really wasn't aware of what was up here or anything truly until after college. I came up here for soccer tournaments until that up to Los Angeles. So no, I honestly, it's a pretty traditional and boring, not boring, but traditional route. I think like I fell in love with theater, went through that, did some like film stuff, and then came out here and worked my way up and yada 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 from there.
Well, this is a show where we like the yada yadas, so that's something we want to hear about. Now, I know you went to Princeton. Did you study film at Princeton?
They don't have a film program, or
Oh,
I don't want to misspeak. They didn't when I went have a film program, and so we learned it the old-fashioned way, if you will, which I love, which was drama and theater. So everything from like Shakespeare to Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller to you name it. And so I really fell in love with things that way. And then, wanting to come out here after college, I tried to figure out how that might work in with how things work. And
Did
then
you actually perform at Princeton? Did you do any acting?
I did in my first couple of years, and then I kind of segued to like directing and producing plays.
Where the real power is, of course.
Well, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So you come out to California with a bachelor's degree. What would you say? What do you remember as your first industry connection? What was the first thing you did?
Well, so just for a little backstory for a second, I came out here this spring break of my senior year at college. And honestly, my brother, who knew some people who knew some people, and I kind of scraped together like maybe 6 meetings where I went, and there was this one pinnacle one at Warner Brothers where an executive said to me, just off of looking at my resume, and I think didn't understand what my expectations were or anything. This was like, you're going to be getting coffee for 5 years, and you're not supposed to say anything, and you're not supposed to da 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 da. And this all happened to me before I went back to school for another 2 months. And so I would say that really motivated me to like come back with a plan. And then I got very lucky. I got very lucky.
Now, how did you get lucky?
Um, the amazing producer Lynda Obst hired me, like a month out of school, I think, if that. And then I worked for her for several years. And then um, when that ended, I ended up working I wanted to correct this up top actually. Like, I worked for David Heyman, and I helped open the Los Angeles office of the brand, but I wasn't like running the Harry Potter movies, just to be
Got
clear
it.
for everybody. And no, so I had a lot of really great mentors and experiences. And so, yeah, I've been very lucky.
Linda is a legendary producer in this town. She's been involved in so many different film projects. How would you describe her?
Brilliant, brilliant. And I'm so glad I had her as a mentor.
So you get hired, I assume you're some kind of production assistant working for the companies to start?
Yeah. And then I moved over to Heyday Films. And then,
And that's David Heyman's company.
yeah, he's amazing, also, terrific mentor. And then I, uh, you know, went on to repartner with Lynda, which I was really lucky to have. And there was a strike, which just like ruined everything. And then everybody kind of figured out their own things, and we parted ways. And yeah, no, that's what helped me found this independent studio, Georgeville Television, uh, which again I was lucky to be involved with and have the partners that I had in it.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that company?
Georgeville Television,
George,
Ville.
Georgeville Television. Where does the name come from?
Um, it comes from the town where my kids and their cousins spend their summers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
What state is that in?
it's in Quebec, actually.
It's in
Quebec.
Quebec?
Yeah.
Oh, are you French Canadian?
No, no, no. And I don't really want to go into that if that's okay.
No problem, no problem. I actually worked on two films in Quebec. Had a great time there. Great.
for sure.
Being working
Um,
with David and Lynda, what was the very first film set you actually visited as a person working on a show or working for them?
uh, Again, super lucky that Linda was producing a show that was, or a, yeah, a TV movie that got like Emmy nominated, Golden Globe nominated, called The 60s, based off a book she edited. And I think that was in like pre-production 2 months from when I got into the company. And so I got to see it really up close and personal and from the best. And then same with David on the stuff that we did. And then had an independent TV studio. And then worked with Village Roadshow.
Yeah,
Uh,
let me pull up their logo because this is a company that is a major player in Hollywood. They seem to be involved in some of the biggest films ever.
mhm.
How would you describe the company in terms of when you were there? Was it a place where nothing was too big? How was it run?
No, it was, and again, I don't want to get too deep into this, but no, there was a change of regime, and it was just it became a Village 2.0, if you will. So it was just a different thing. And so they were, you know, doing some of the same things, yes, and co-financing, I believe. But it didn't change the business model much, other than starting to add more content, like a lot of places.
That's a company that's run by Australians, correct?
Not the American offshoot.
When you were there, who was running the company?
Um, Terrific guy named Steve Moscow.
Oh, okay. Did you enjoy your time at Village Roadshow?
I did. I did. Sorry, I did.
Cool. Tell me about some of the projects you are most proud of working on there.
Well, it got very rough after the strike, and
Which strike are we talking about? 80,
the writers' strike of last year.
oh, this past writing strike.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely created some speed bumps for, I think, everyone in the business. And then I think also the market has changed. So I think that there's even more speed bumps to getting things done and how you package things and when people want to hear things and when they're buying things. And so it's become a lot tougher.
everybody I talk to is saying the same thing, that it's a very difficult time to be selling both film and television.
Either, yeah.
Um, if you are you focusing now primarily on TV? I see you have a lot of things in development. They seem like mostly television, correct?
Um, yeah, it's probably like 70-30 right now. Yeah.
Right, right. One of the projects I thought was interesting because a couple of my friends are horror film directors, so I always kind of keep an eye on the horror market. I see that you are developing Jay Anson's book 666.
Again, another like getting lucky and another blessing. Yeah. Um, the first set I worked on, the 60s that I mentioned,
Right?
one of the ADs is Jay Anson's son. And so he and I have been friends forever at this point. And yeah, we're developing that. The only other book he ever wrote.
For the listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with Jay Anson, he wrote the original Amityville horror novel, correct?
Yes.
And was he involved in the movie adaptation as well, or just the book?
And I'm really unclear. I think I'm very unclear. I've never really cornered my friend about it.
Got it. Got it. One of the other projects, now one of the films that you say that you're working on, or as a series, is Centurions. Now, is that related to, uh, is that about LAPD or is that a different Centurions I'm thinking of?
That's a different thing you're thinking of, I think. Yeah.
What is your Centurions all about?
It's based on a series of books, so you could find that too. I'm sure called Eagles of the Empire by Simon Scarrow. And instead of like starting in the Colosseum or starting in ancient Rome and being in the Senate or any of those things, excuse me, it starts in the outer reaches of the Roman Empire. And that's the backdrop. So at the same time, it's also like the Wild Bunch or the Dirty Dozen is probably more somewhere in there. You know what I mean? With two centurions at the heart of it. It's really fun and really great. And I don't know. I know if it made it to the screen, that people would love it. So we're figuring out the strategy for the new year.
Oh, good luck with that. I just the other night I went to see Gladiator Part Two.
Yes.
It just blew me away. I laughed because my wife came with me and the sound was so intense at the DGA that she covered her ears through half the movie. And my wife does not like violence, so she covered her eyes for half the movie.
It was pretty messed up. Yeah.
But I was blown away. I thought it was terrific. I mean, Paul Mescal had very big shoes to fill,
Yes.
following Russell Crowe. But
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. Did you see it?
Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of movie. I mean, I went to UCLA. I studied history, and I studied mostly ancient history. So I took classes in Byzantium and ancient Rome, and I just love that stuff. And I kind of grew up on sword and sandal movies that they were made in the 60s, those
I
Hercules.
love Ben-Hur and those sorts of things. Yes, Spartacus. Yeah, no, for sure.
It's so funny because I just was walking out of the room. I had TCM on and was watching Ben-Hur,
There you go.
one of the first movies I ever remember.
Too, actually. My mom had me watch it. I remember early on.
And on our show we had a Charlton Heston night 2 weeks ago, so we got a chance to talk about all the great Charlton Heston movies. He was kind of the go-to guy in those days for epics.
Totally. And they don't build them like they used to.
They don't. And that gets to Hollywood today. You're on the front lines every day trying to sell. I wonder, I know there's a lot of change going on, but I sometimes wonder if the bean counters are running the asylum and not the creative storytellers. And what do you think?
Wait, so are the bean counters the lunatics or are the rest of us the lunatics?
Well, the bean
Under
counters
the
who say
asylum.
the guys who say this can cost so much and you can make it for that price and it'll do this amount of business. So they've already projected ahead what the show will do in either in the movies and in television. I'm not quite sure. But I think the storytellers, and of course it comes down to the writers again. Writers are always getting short shrift and they're
Yeah.
not respected. And I just feel that as the people who listen to my show and who watch the show on YouTube, I'm always railing against the fact that there aren't enough fun movies anymore. Movies that you tell your friends about.
Right. Not that come out theatrically, at least.
Right, right. I mean, there's enough television to stuff three horses. I mean, they said last year, I think it was the head of FX, what's John's last?
Land grab.
John Landgraf, who, by the way, I used to, when I first got into doing publicity for the studios, he was doing satellite tours as a neophyte. And John said that, that there was going to be a pinnacle, and because there are already 587 scripted shows on the air.
Right.
Now, my wife and I are big TV watchers. We watch probably 6 shows, but
Yeah.
there are 587 of them. It's crazy out there. It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, there are a lot of channels to fill. I guess you got to have a lot of shows.
Yep, yep. But I also think that timing was unfortunate because right when, let's just say Netflix, but also Amazon and Apple, those three were at the forefront. Right when they were getting ready to make a big spending push into content, COVID hit at the same time. And so all of a sudden, people were just sitting at home and consuming content at a higher rate than they ever had been before in, I don't know, maybe the history of filmed content, right? Because everybody was stuck at home. And so people were watching everything, anything. And so I think that that bubble has burst. Not that COVID's over, shouldn't be taken seriously, but I think now people have gotten used to sitting at home and watching everything, unless it has really big VFX or and I really big IP or some kind of spectacle. I think just in general, they'd rather sit at home on their on everybody has amazing TVs now. They're amazing. But like everybody is fine sitting home and watching a romantic comedy on a big TV screen on a wall and being, able to pause it when you need to go to the bathroom or whatever.
I consider it a victory that I made it through Gladiator 2 with not having to go to the bathroom, which is
Wow, that's an accomplishment.
now that's a 2.5 hour movie. I hear The Brutalist, which I have not seen yet, which is getting already
Yeah.
touted as a Best Picture nominee, is 3.5 hours, but it has an intermission,
Wow.
which I
It has
think
an intermission.
there's an
I
intermission.
like it already. Like Ben-Hur.
Yeah, like Ben-Hur, like a lot of the epics, a lot who were keenly aware of the fact that people's bladders are very different.
Yeah.
It's terrific. So the movie, well, one of the areas I'm always talking about is what happened to movie comedies, and it's
Well, I think that so. I mean, in a very just kind of like crude way, there's the things that are based on high end IP or have high end stars, and they justify 50 or 70 to $150 million movies, which then have to get because of the P&A costs. It goes even higher by several more millions of millions to market the picture. Um, that it's either got to be something that they really put a big IP and push and title into or whatever, or it's got to be something that they made for so little, like some of the horror movies and the romantic comedies. And I think that's where you seeing things like Anyone But You. I think the market wants some romantic comedies right now because the world is so dark. You know, I would love to see the next When Harry Met Sally or pictures of that ilk again.
sure, sure.
Um, and so I think you have to make movies either below 20, certainly, but below 15 and sometimes even 10 if you have to, and or have the backing because of the IP you're involved with, movies or series, to get the movies or series um, some oomph and in the market and stand out because places don't want to have to market as much anymore. They want things that kind of sell themselves as much as possible,
Pr-
either
pr-
through idea, property, or cast.
Sure, sure.
Sorry, I have a frog in my throat.
That's okay. That's okay. Um, Packaging is quite a word because for writers, it's not about the script anymore. It seems to me that if you have a fairly decent screenplay, it can be very lonesome because the studios and the streamers and the networks, they want talent attached. They won't
Yeah,
make a move on it. Is that pretty accurate?
yeah. I
So,
mean,
Yeah.
even the series outlets from streamers to traditional. I mean, traditional, like, your CBS and others that are like primetime shows, those are pretty straightforward. And so I think, but otherwise, the rest of the market is so confusing. If you put a map up on a wall, which a lot of us do, and figure out where to take a certain project, there's a lot of different paths things can go now. And that includes where they're based. If it's based in Europe, it makes a big difference. Um, and also what the budget is, and what the hook is. Like Breaking Bad was made for nothing, but that hook is amazing. You're gonna watch the first season for that hook.
It's interesting because they used to say that whereas movies need stars, television makes stars. So you didn't
Yeah,
get named performers to be in television shows because they were going to be promoted into becoming stars. But that doesn't seem to be necessarily true anymore.
I think
Yeah,
no. I mean, Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston, like all these, and then a bunch of actors as well. They're all making cool series because they're more fun and they can have creative control, which also is just more fun to be a part of that. And so yeah, people are mixing it up. It's like the Brits used to be like, sometimes they'd be on a BBC show, sometimes they'd be in a fancy movie, and so on and so forth. So no, I think it's just, yeah, there's a diversity of ways that things can go.
yes, yes, so true. I was going to put up a picture of somebody who you seem to have developed a nice relationship with, which is Peter Dinklage. Tell me how you first met Peter Dinklage. I'm a big fan of his, certainly from Game of Thrones, but he just seems like a very classy actor.
He's a very classy guy. Um, we have a personal relationship, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but we met um, when we found a project that we're working on together, that we're still working on together. And then he came and worked on a TV show, um, on CBS, that I was the first TV show I had been a part of the EP gang
And that's Threshold, correct?
special, right? And so um, we just got to know each other, and then we got involved with this other project. And yeah, no, he's just, I don't have much. He's an amazing human being.
I was taking a walk one day down to Pico Boulevard from our home in Brentwood. I walked past University High School,
Yeah,
and he was standing on the front lawn with a camera crew making a show.
right.
I actually said hi to him, and he said hi back. It was a great
Yeah,
little moment,
yeah, right.
and it was definitely a lot of fun. So what in terms of story, what generally excites you? Do you look for IP first, or does an original screenplay appeal to you? I mean, what in the movie side, what gets you going?
I mean, both sides are different in a lot of ways, but in the core principle of like, do I want to make this, right? Or am I going to spend, especially as a producer, this, it's like, do I really love this so much that I want to put like 3 to 5 years into it before anything happens? I think it's just a matter of understanding what the lanes are. So I think that like horror, thriller, supernatural thriller, like that whole thing that can be made again for under $10 million. I think romantic comedies made for a price, and then I think things like Wicked and Barbie, and then things like you know Gladiator and Avengers at the theaters. But I don't think I think that you're not going to see a whole lot of theatrical releases of comedies anymore, or romantic comedies.
Yeah, that's just so it's so crazy
Like
because
if Annie Hall came out today,
It would
It
go
would
to
not. And I don't need to, I know that that's like people have opinions about it, but I'm just talking about the movie, right? If that came out, like that would never get made today. That would get shrugged off today.
Well, I was even talking to somebody and they felt that if The Godfather got made today, it would probably be an HBO debut.
Yeah, totally.
And same with All the President's Men, which doesn't bode well for the industry. In terms of the theatrical experience, everybody seems to think that it's really just a franchise business now, that if you're doing Batman 12 and Aquaman 6 and Star Wars 8, that's pretty much the future of our business. That's kind of scary, but I guess it's true.
I mean, they have other franchises coming out, so there's all sorts of Lego this and Barbie and so I think it is brand oriented for sure because that's part of that publicity that I was talking about. It's got to have inherent publicity if it's going to be something that they feel like they can easily market. And so, yeah, I think you have to hit those high ends of of those two quadrants of movies. Actually, like Avengers, like I said, Avengers type movies and Gladiator type movies, and then the Barbie and the Wicked type movies, which I love those movies.
Oh,
So
sure.
it's just like that's what they'll pay a lot for, and then everything else, and it might be good economically, is going to get put together for cheaper and or with other financing, alternative financing and or foreign sales and stuff.
Well, it seems to be also the big buzz phrase these days is AI. How will that affect production costs? And every other day, there's somebody saying that prices may come down soon because of AI abilities. What do you think about that?
I'll be really honest. I'm kind of a Luddite and a technophobe. So but I read everything. So I have a lot of thoughts about AI, but I don't think that AI needs to write. I think if ever I would in the process even consider suggesting it would be at the very, very top of it when something's being conceived. Because I've tried it once or twice. So generic. It's just so by the numbers what it churns out, right? Which is fine. It gives you a structure. But I think that's the only use of it is if you're having like a block up there. But once you get into a script at a certain point, I just don't think that the writing can be emulated that humans can produce. So
Oh,
I'm
well,
not
being a comedy writer, that's good because even though based on your theory, there's not going to be any more comedies in theatrical, or at least
I don't think there won't be any, but again, it's gonna be like it's gonna go back to like the raunchy comedies where people want to be together so they can laugh together really hard,
oh yeah,
right?
well, it was explained to me. Noisy comedies work.
Noisy comedies totally work because you want to laugh with other people. It's all about the communal experience. But again, if you feel like you can like sit home and watch it and like and hang out and be comfortable and you don't really need to see there's no spectacle, so it's all about the acting, which I love those kinds of movies, but maybe you don't need to go pay $50 to go see it.
By the way, I'm convinced that if you're screening for the Oscars, the movies to determine whether you're going to vote, you got to go to the theater because invariably
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will lie on the couch and
yeah,
between about a 45 minutes in, I'm asleep.
yeah,
It's just you get too comfortable at home and well, I'm an older guy now. I'm not 27 anymore, so I just doze off. But I think that there's an audience out there that isn't the 12 to 24s who's dying to see something in the movies that would get them excited, as was demonstrated by Oppenheimer, by Barbie, by Gladiator, by Wicked. They will come out. If to paraphrase the Kevin Costner movie, if they build it, they will come. I just it just worries me that we're just not having enough fun movies. I find myself grazing on more TCM movies and more Criterion movies, going back to fun movies.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
watching. I've been watching a movie where John Voight really chews the scenery. Anaconda from
Oh yeah.
1987.
Anaconda.
I was sitting there today trying to figure out. He's trying to out Quint from Jaws,
Yeah.
doing a very good job of it. John Voight does something with his mouth in this movie where he just kind of he has this kind of scowl. Just and I've worked with John. I actually was assigned to back in the 80s. I was the unit publicist on a little movie called Desert Bloom, which was
Okay.
shot. You remember it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a period piece about the first nuclear tests in Vegas, which we shot in Tucson, and he played the kind of post-traumatic stress disorder soldier, etc. Very, very good movie. Very good movie. Um, let's talk a little bit about. Let's see. Oh yeah, you had some connection with Christopher Nolan. I guess was that working with Lynn?
Oh, I don't want to. I mean, we developed something together once, but
Oh,
I don't
okay.
say that we're like, besties. I love and adore everything he does, and
Oh yeah.
his brother's a sort of old friend.
Oh, okay. Well, he's certainly riding a very high path now after Oppenheimer,
Well,
which
he's able to make movies where he's creating his own worlds and franchises, even with Batman, and that's why he's so valuable. Is because like there's some of the few movies that kind of break that four quadrant mode of what I was talking about. Like they just play to everything and the spectacle and everything, the wardrobe, the everything is so precise and good and well written and well directed. So yeah, I think that he's sort of like Hitchcock would be. Like people are gonna go see a Chris Nolan.
well, certainly his relationship with Christian Bale on those Batman movies was just amazing. Batman is a very interesting part to cast because unlike a lot of superheroes who are, you know, they're moving around a lot and you see their faces and Batman wears the cowl and yet I thought he got some great that voice, that Christian Bale voice plus the mannerisms really nailed the character for me.
Yeah, no, it was the best version of that franchise. Yeah,
I'm also a big fan of Dunkirk. I thought that was also an
amazing.
amazing movie.
Right up there with like John Ford movies. And
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Um, let's see who else I can bring up here. Um, Now, you mentioned on the November Man that you were actually involved in developing that as a TV series. So you didn't work on the feature.
did not, but we're currently putting together the TV series.
Oh, okay. So it's a kind of another spy type series,
Yes.
which is a very popular genre right now. We're now getting into the agency, enjoying that, and just got through watching Day of the Jackal, also very good.
Did you? I assume you already watched Slow Horses.
And we've been watching Slow Horses as well with the fabulous Gary Oldman.
Yeah, he's
But
amazing.
I'll tell you my favorite show of the season is Vince Vaughn in Bad Monkey.
Okay, so other people have said that to me, and I'm like, no, you got to be kidding. I have kids. I don't have time. I have to choose shows very specifically that I'm gonna watch. And then, but everybody's been saying that that show is really good.
It's really well written. And,
Okay.
Vince Vaughn has been kind of quiet of late. I mean, he's done things, but he
Yeah,
hasn't
but he's
really
been out of the spotlight. Yeah.
yeah, he's been out of the spotlight. I mean, the last thing I saw him in was the sequel to Get Shorty. But he found his role. This is a marvelous role for Vince
He's a
Vaughn.
terrific act. He's a terrific, like, whatever actor. Like, and he has a certain thing that nobody can replicate. So yeah, that's great to hear. I'm so glad.
Oh yeah, I mean
First have good things happen.
the when he teamed with Owen Wilson in Wedding Crashers, that's
Oh, the
just those
best.
kind of movies. I just miss those kind
Yes,
of movies.
me too. Revenge of the Nerds. Where's that?
Right. No, exactly, exactly. And Vince plays an interesting character. I think from the first two scenes, you're hooked. He's basically a cop, which we
Right.
haven't seen him before, and a very
No.
tall cop. But and I can't say enough about that show, and that's one of those 587 shows that I've been well, I haven't watched them all of them.
Right.
So tell me a little bit more, on your development slate. You've got so many projects that you're trying to put together. Uh,
Oh, I mean, do you want to? Is there a section where we're going to talk about like the state of the business today, or
we have been, and I'm certainly eager to get your opinions on things because everybody is wondering where things are headed. And in terms of, you mentioned that you had some theories on AI. Do you want to go a little deeper into that in terms of?
I mean, yeah, they're only like so deep. I would say not so deep because I don't know the details of how all the AI stuff works beyond the fact that I've generated a couple documents to test it, and I really wasn't happy with them, but I could see the value in them at the same time, if that made any sense. Um, I think that writers have less to worry about than, and again, until somebody shows me this one that writes the most amazing script that like people can't tell. Um, that I think writing is going to go on. I think that everybody's right. Everybody else is right to worry about their AI characters, appearances, etc. And also, you know, I think it's going to also at the same time help VFX work exponentially and make it, hopefully a little cheaper. So, big things get made for less.
Well, I was talking to an executive in one of the studios recently about the whole concept of AI. And the legal departments are very, very conscious of the fact that when they buy a script or they buy a book or they buy whatever, they've got to know the strict author and the chain of title.
Yeah.
And if you send in something that has been pretty much created in AI, they don't know who the author is. And
Right.
that bothers them. So I've been telling a lot of writer friends of mine that, don't worry as much because they are very concerned about who created something and whether they're a human or not.
Yeah.
So I mean that's one thing that I think is less to worry about. But I think what I think Jeffrey Katzenberg said last year was that prices are going to start coming down on visual effects because
Yeah,
of AI.
for
And
sure.
that would be good. That would be good. Your Constantine series, I'm sorry, excuse me, your Centurion series sounds like you're going to need a lot of production value.
Yeah, I mean, we're already looking at locations like Spain and Greece and others. And those places have really good tax incentives, not a
Right.
coincidence. So, yeah. And they're being done as European productions. So, yeah.
So here's a question that a lot of producer friends and I talk about a lot is when packaging, we were talking about the need to put names into productions to add value to it so that you're not walking in the door with just a naked screenplay, and yet you're not financed yet. So basically, you go into a company like Apple, and they're going to want to know that Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon are in the movie, but you can't attach them without making them an offer. You're not financed. Is there a way of getting around them?
I think that in a good way, what's happened is that actors aren't just waiting for material, and actresses are not waiting for material to come to them just through their agents. I think that a lot of people are starting production companies, especially I'm 48. Like the people like 10 and 20 years younger than me are starting their own production companies and being a part of that process and then producing other things because they're friends with each other. And so I think it really depends on the material and if you're willing to partner in a certain way. But I think it really just depends on the material. And I think we're all anyone who's trying to sell anything to a buyer of any sort are all concerned about, well, what should we get involved with? What should we spend our time with? What should we spend our money on in order to move forward? And the only kind of sure things, even though there's no such thing as a sure thing, is the horror stuff because it can be made for cheap, and thrillers because then you could probably get a star and do it. Comedies, romantic comedies can be made for under 15. And then otherwise, it's everything above that. It's going to be branded by being a best-selling novel or having two movie stars in it. Same for series, by the way. Film and series are no different right now in what they're trying to buy.
So once again, you have to add names that give it some value, like putting Gary Oldman into Slow Horses.
Unless it's already a best-selling book, or if it's like a best-selling kids book, then no, you could probably just set that up. But and I think like if it was Robert Ludlum's estate or something like that, I think you could probably sort that out. But otherwise, no, if it's not big branded with a pre-existing audience kind of a thing, then no, it's very tough for just your run-of-the-mill IP.
It's funny, you see fewer and fewer deals at studios anymore. They used to hand out producing deals left and right that they would have like a 20 to 30 to 40 different producers on the lot.
It was a part of that same bubble, and it was already happening before Netflix came into existence, but it just blew up even further before it could deflate. And so then there was just a bigger kind of crash, which, yeah, I mean, I think from the 50,000 foot view, you have a business that started out about talent and then it started to become about money. And then it became about like corporate money in the days that you had GE and other places like buying up like movie studios and record labels and so forth. And then it moved up to, bigger corporations. And then it moved up to all the tech companies because they're the ones who have all the money. So they've kind of overtaken the business on some levels. So it's just, yeah, it's you have to be very open minded in terms of what you're going to take out and how you're going to take it out, and if you're going to go left or right at certain junctions. But it's you can still do it, and I think you can still get talent, but it's got to be something that anyone understands that it's going to be something that can sell. Yeah,
I
and
think
same with directors.
the great advantage that Netflix, Amazon, and Apple have is their marketing is a whole different dynamic. They don't have to open a movie in 1,500 theaters with TV advertising across
There's
the
no
whole
P and
planet.
A. Yeah.
So without having to worry about the P&A and also worry about box office, they're just trying to find subscribers. I understand the mentality. I just think they have too much product. I
Oh,
work.
they do because they got. This is what I meant by the timing, the unfortunate timing, and this also fell with the writer's strike. They hired a bunch of writers and got a bunch of shows going because they all needed content. All the new players and the regular players. Everybody spent a bunch of money, and then when COVID happened, they spent more money, and so they would have stuff to like put in their pipelines. They got a bunch of stuff made. A lot of people were working. Money was flowing. And then that just fizzled little by little over the last like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, no, I see that. Everybody's the production is way down in California, but then again, California's incentives don't match everybody
No,
else's incentives. Why would
no,
I make a show in California when
yeah,
I can go to Atlanta and get 30%?
yeah, or Vancouver or wherever you need to go. Like, yeah, again, I don't understand the nuances of why that can't happen, but it feels like it only goes to a few places a year or a few projects a year.
Have you filmed in California?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would like to stay here. I think one of the advantages of working in LA is you can go home at night. You can spare all those travel costs and expenses, et cetera.
that's true too. Yeah.
So when you were first seeing movies, I know you mentioned the John Ford films recently. That shows me that you have a sense of film history. What were some of the movies that you mentioned the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies? What are some other titles that really inspired you to get into our crazy business?
Well, so I was a total, as my kids like to joke, a total theater dork. In from starting in like seventh grade all the way through college and ending up out here. So did a lot of theater. My mom and her mom loved musical theater. I saw both live and the movies of, you know, everything from, things for kids like Mary Poppins to Oklahoma to um, Some Like It Hot. I remember seeing maybe when I was like seven, and exposed to that early. And then my dad, um, my dad took me way too young to see The Wrath of Khan, the point where I still have issues about my ears and like going to sleep and my ears and stuff. And so I've been horrified by that ever since. But so I'm a real kind of genre guy too, like or sci-fi genre guy. But I also that makes me appreciate thriller and horror as well.
What happened to Star Wars? I mean, those initial movies were such trendsetters, and I
It's
don't
hard
know.
to it's hard to do better than something that's like you really have to knock it out of the park, and there were just mistakes made. I mean, in hindsight, it's 2020, so it is what it is. But yeah, I don't want to
Well,
talk
it's
about
funny.
this.
It's funny because the shows have been terrific. Uh,
Yeah, most of them. Yeah,
yeah, Mandalorian and uh, Obi-Wan Kenobi and
yeah.
just that they're inspired and good, and they don't follow any kind of pattern. Whereas the features, they keep trying to remake the first Star Wars movie, and I think that
Yeah, they
it's
need to break the mold on the whole like they're building a big bad thing somewhere. We're gonna seem like we get defeated at the end of the first one, or we're gonna be on our way at the end of the first one. Then in the second one, we seem like we're gonna be defeated, and then in the third one, we're gonna come back and dance around the fire. Like that's it feels like that is what they've applied to all of them. And then I don't even know the last three just kind of. I mean, they even turned my kids off, and my kids have been watching it since they were young, the originals. And
it comes down to storytelling. I think there's just everyone's caught up in the facts. The visual fabric is terrific, but
oh
it
yeah,
do you care about the characters? Do you really like these people?
no, that's what was great about. I mean, some of the best scenes are like, I mean, how much did that thing cost to make? Where like the squids were in it with the trash compactor when they were on the Death Star and trying to get out, and that whole scene about like, and there's some banter between Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. I mean, yeah, yeah. There's
She's walking down the hallway. You get this big walking carpet out of my way.
yeah,
How could you diss a Wookiee like that? No,
yeah.
I agree. I agree. We actually, my writing partner and I wrote a movie, which I don't think we can make now because we wrote about the kids who line up 4 days before the new Star Wars movie opens up. It was kind of like a Revenge of the Nerds, where the studio is saying that if you're first in line after 4 days, you get parts in the next Star Wars movie. So it creates kind of a competition. But that we wrote that 10 years ago when Star Wars was coming back in a big way. And now I don't know. I may have to change it to Wicked. It's a different
Yeah.
mentality altogether. Okay, so the question is, you are being sent to a desert island. I don't know what the punishment is for, but
Okay.
Mark, you're going to have to, but they're allowing you to take one movie with you, which you will be watching for the rest of your life.
Oh,
And you got to pick one.
I hate these questions. I don't. It's like when my kids say, "What's your favorite thing?" And I said, "I don't have a favorite movie. Like I have favorite things in certain genres. Like Les Miserables is maybe my favorite musical, or things like that. But the movie I would take, watch over and over again. Hmm, I don't want to sound trite, but honestly, something like The Godfather, the first one, or the second one, or if I could cheat and get the one where he cut them together, I would
Sure.
get that one. I would take that one. Um,
Godfather always works. It doesn't, I mean, you can watch it 100 times. It's still very powerful.
yeah, I mean, I went to this summer camp on Catalina Island, and there was movie night every week, every Saturday, and it was where you like got to sit with whoever you want, and so on and so forth. And they played the cheesiest. They played Pete's Dragon was one of the movies. They played Herbie the Love Bug.
It's low
Um,
octane Disney.
they played. They did have E.T. We watched E.T. a bunch of times and whatever, but it was this great kind of atmosphere and yeah, I think that there's something about that experience and that's my I don't know. That's what still excites me about it is that can do things for people.
So The Godfather is your choice.
Um, yeah.
You're going to be hanging out with Fredo and the boys for a long time.
I was gonna say I don't know because I do like to. I have to shyly admit I do like a little musical because at least you can like dance to it even if it's driving you crazy or something like that. But like a happy musical.
Well, I
Um,
would always choose the happiest of all musicals, which is Singing in the Rain.
yeah, Singing in the Rain would be good. I like the Music Man. I have to say.
Oh, sure. I have that
Um,
on my phone. I play that quite a bit. 76 trombones.
yes,
Always good. Robert Preston, like Harrison Ford with Star Wars, Robert
yeah,
Preston had his music, man. And
yeah,
yeah, no, so true, so true. Well, Mark, this has been fun. This has been fun.
yeah. Yeah, totally.
Fighting the good fight every day and getting good luck with all of your projects. I hope that a good portion of them get made. And I want to tell everybody who listens and watches this show to also tune into our other podcast, Tales from Hollywoodland, where we have a whole different lineup of guests and topics. In that show, we explore a lot of genres. The other day, we did a show on underrated movies. And my choice, well, I had three. One was Empire of the Sun, which I don't think gets enough attention. A really well done Spielberg. And I also love a movie called Local Hero with Peter Riegert. You know that movie.
Yeah.
That's a great one. And what was the third one? Let's see. Underrated movies. I can't remember, but that's on Tales from Hollywoodland, which is on your favorite podcast. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, please, if you're inclined, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It's free. Not a lot of free things are available in the world. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Steve Rubin. I'm the host of Saturday Night at the Movies. Our producer is Ben Shrewsbury. And thank you. And Mark, we hope to talk to you again.
Thank you, Steve. Nice to talk to you.